Greetings and welcome to the Marketing Matters podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Atema, with my brilliant co-host.
Atema Victoria.
Now, if you're into marketing trends and want to learn more about how to implement effective marketing strategies, or just want to know about what is happening in the marketing scene, or curious about the tech developments, you are actually in the right place. Now, we try to keep it fun and insightful here, and hopefully, if you're a new audience, you find it that it was worth your time. And if you're a recurring or an existing audience, I hope that every day we satisfy you with our engagements and our discussions. Please always remember to be engaged in our comment section, and even just follow our platforms for more insights and more notification. So let's jump right in, Vicky. There was a report that was issued or released by our regulator called the Communications Authority. Um, and this report is called the Audience Measurement and Industry Trends Report. Now, this report covers a whole host of activities or of statistics in the media world, and the government or the communications authority usually does their year between June to which
No,
kind is
July
June?
to June.
Yeah, it's July to June.
July to
Thank you.
June, yeah.
Yeah, they do July to June as opposed to the normal calendar, which is Jan to December. So anyway, their July to June report, which they call their full year report, was released the other day, and it showed several trends. But most importantly, why should you care as a business or as a marketing professional? Now, this report is important to you if you are interested, or if you do or run campaigns on different media platforms, usually TV, newspaper, print, and soon on the digital platforms. You need to know that you need to have insights about where people are consuming these types of media, which industries are spending on these types of ads, what devices are consuming the media, and also where these types of media are being deployed. It could be regionally, it could be also countywide, it could also be just per device. Now, with this knowledge, you can get a sense of where you should be focusing your resources as a marketer in your whole campaign mix. But you can also understand what devices or what mediums you should be using if you are a brand that targets different regions. Also, you can also learn
Yeah.
about how competitive your industry is based on the ad spend, because ad spend dictates how competitive and also how lucrative such an industry is. An industry that spends a lot also has a high tendency or has a high correlation with how much that industry makes. But most importantly, you'll also just get a sense of the trends in your media and how people are consuming in the media and how people are consuming that media, and you can plan for your future. So let's just dive into this report, and let me just share the report for an easier engagement of this session. So let's dive into this report. Now, Vicky, it would seem that folks are still watching their tellies with almost, I think, with the listenership on radio around 76%, while the internet consumption is just a few points shy of 60%. I don't know when you look at this consumption per gender, it's also quite interesting where people are consuming, because newspapers is like really struggling. But to be fair, this is usage in the last 7 days. But again, last 7 days is just a weekly consumption. So if you're not consuming newspapers in a week, then definitely you can extrapolate this for a year. I don't know what if you have any reactions, Vicky, to this one, because it's quite telling, especially for anybody in the media industry, to on where the trends are, and just how much um, of a risk anybody in the newspaper business is at right now. I don't know if it is
Yeah.
it justifies why a company like Royal Media has never even tried to have a newspaper business.
Yeah, this is interesting statistics. I'm just looking at the comparison between the radio and the television. It's like they're almost the same, uh, but as much as they're the same, and we still have it still stands out in terms of the number of people who watch television and listen to radio. the internet is coming up at a very high speed, and before we know it, it will come to overtake the television and radio. Because when you look at the data, the internet states that it's 57%, 58. It's almost above average. So because it's
Mm,
above average, and these ones are not, remember, we are not having the comparison of the previous years, you will realize that the radio and TV have slightly gone down. That's why the internet has gone up. And then it also shows you that um, uh, people are not consuming newspaper and magazines. These ones are going away. Like these ones, even we can't even talk anything about it. Remember, people used to consume newspapers because you will get them in offices. The managers will be every company, big companies and mostly small companies, they will buy newspapers in the offices. You had to research through the newspapers to be able to get data or to be able to understand what's going on in the country. But right now, people are able to consume information just by their phone. They just need their mobile phone, and then they scroll through the different information that they get on the social media platforms and the internet at large. So because it has become very easy for us to access data via our phones, then the newspapers have ceased to exist. That you don't
mm,
need to buy a hard copy. Yet even while before you reach work, the olden days, or a few years ago, because it's not even a long time ago, you will go to the office to now research or read the news if you didn't watch it at home. But right now, even before you reach work, you've already found out what happened 30 minutes ago just by looking at your phone. So the newspapers and magazines, they're automatically going away. And of course,
mm.
maybe the radio would work because of the slow adaptation to technology in the rural areas. Remember, people have still are using the phones that we call mulikamuizi, which have a radio and a torch. So
Mm,
those people who consume that, as much as you find that some are not able to buy the radio sets on their home or while they're working, they have the radio on their phones that they're using. But
mm.
eventually, I know internet is going to overtake the television and radio. Yeah.
Yeah, you say the radio that is consumed even in the rural areas, but I dare say even in the urban areas, people in the informal sector are consuming a lot of radio when they're at work. You know, the guys who are in the Jengo, the guys who are, you
Mm.
know, the watchmen, the house helps, they are consuming also a lot of radio, which is driving a lot of traffic. In fact, when we are looking at the statistics on the LSM, which is living standard measure, you'll find that radio consumption is heavy on the people in the lower segments of the society. On the newspaper, I think the problem, in my view, has been that companies, newspaper companies, I don't want to say that they refused to adapt, but I think the adoption to the media to the trends in the tech space was very slow. In fact, even if you look at the biggest newspapers globally, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and whatnot, while they have been able to not to successfully transition to online platforms, their share of the market is still significantly lower than where it was in the 80s and 90s. And I think it was because of decisions that were taken by these companies. And even as we are speaking now about the newspaper, I suspect that is also what is going to happen to traditional media. Most of them are still operating a model that is not up to date with how the social media trends is consuming is consuming me. The social media trends are moving, and I say this because look at a company. Take any example of a global, not a global, even a local big media house in Kenya. If you've been noticing, most of them are reporting losses, and it's because right now the creation of content has been so much democratized by these social media platforms that it is so hard to justify why you need a cameraman, why you need a producer, why you need a makeup artist, why you need a guy who does wardrobe, why you need a guy who does sets, why you need the anchor. All these people are going to be paid when me and you right now are reporting news, and all we need is our devices and internet connection. So right now, imagine we are competing with a big media house that has to employ people, maybe 5 people, just to ensure that one news item is shared with the public. And right now, you and I and any other creator is also able to deliver the same type of news to the audience. And I think we can agree that right now the focus has shifted from aesthetics in terms of how you deliver news to actual content. That's why you can see that a lot of videos that trend are not videos that are set up in a very flashy area, but it's just what was the content that this person was sharing and how well did they deliver that message. And I think that is, while we are seeing newspaper going, this is something that is, I believe, is also going to hit the big media stations, because even if you look at how they are transitioning to the digital era, they are really just carrying the newsroom to the social media spaces.
Yeah.
Mm. Anyway, we delved into that because that this media consumption sets the precedence of even how the other discussions will be. There was also something that I found quite interesting in terms of how different regions are consuming the media, and in terms of the different medias. And folks in Nyanza and Western and even the Upper Eastern are quite heavy consumers of the radio medium. We are not going to beat those allegations that Luyas and Luos like a lot of radio and patanisho's and whatnot. But our Murima friends are seem to be preferring TV, and that's why you will see even in the trends their contribution to how distribution. Look at Central, their distribution of how they consume TV is the highest. Even though they consume high media on the radio, their percentages cannot be compared to guys in the Lake region and in the Western region. Look at 84% radio, 73%. But an outlier here is Nairobi, which has a very good mix, if I can call that, a very good mix of its consumption for both TV and internet, which shows you the more the access to internet, the higher it is that the higher the consumption is. And remember when you talked about how businesses can plan how to do their campaigns. If you're a business, you can see from these statistics that indeed, if you are able to target the people in the Nairobi region, being on the digital platforms can still be beneficial to you as opposed to being on radio. And if TV is too expensive for you, then you can divert your resources. And even for government, I would expect them to look at this data, because they are also part of this data is supposed to help government in planning. I would expect them to look at this data and see the impact of data of internet in the consumption in Nairobi. If they were able to transverse this and even move it to the mashinani areas, it would do a lot of impact for the people, not what they are launching, those weird Wi-Fi's in the streets and in the local markets. I think they also need to look at this report and move that data to, not even move the resources to where where they are needed. There was also this bit about media consumption, Vicky. I would like to hear your reactions.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention on the rural areas. I think the radio works well with the rural areas because when you look at the structure of the content that are displayed on the different shows is conversational. So people like those conversations on the radio, and it relates to their needs or what they are going through in life. So I think that really helps them want to listen to radio more than TV, because TV is more one-sided. You just watch and you can comment with the people around you. So you don't have that. If you don't have anyone in your house, then whatever you watch, you can only just think aloud. But the radio allows people to have that conversation, and people in the Nyanza Western region, they like that conversation where they give their opinions. I think those are the
Ni
people
watu wa
who I
salamu.
think should even they should adapt to technology very fast because they like this conversation and contributing. And yeah, I think that's what would have caused that. And also, um, Nairobi is I really like the data that I'm seeing in Nairobi because of the technology, and it's because it's the city. This is where we have everyone within, and we have to adapt. Nairobi naturally is faster, so we have to adapt to whatever that comes on board. We go with whatever is trading, so that maybe that's what would cause, and it's very good for advertisers, as you've mentioned. Yeah, people
Yeah, true.
consume more than one media. Just go
Just
back to
before
what
even
we
we
had.
talk about the consumption, you said
Yeah.
something very important, which is that the reason radio is doing very well in most of these regions is because of that engagement, and it has actually triggered something in my mind. And I think that is also a high probability, the reason also why digital is doing very well in any area that has access to digital, and this
Yeah,
digital, I mean the people accessing social media platform. When you are able to engage in a real time manner to whoever is posting something maybe that you like or don't like, that is a very important pull for somebody to consume a media, as opposed to when you're just seated and receiving one-sided type of communication. I thought that is also important to highlight, but yeah, we can talk about the consumption.
yeah, true. Yeah, yes. When I look at this number of media consumed, yeah, it's also interesting that people consume more than one media, and of course, uh, compared to, as in, when you look at the statistics, most people consume multiple, and uh, online is still leading, or it's still competing with TV on a daily basis. This is also something that we note, that you watch TV at home, as you go to work or anywhere you are at the comfort of your phone, so you'll have to scroll through the internet. So you'll find your ways doing find yourself using more than one media. You'll not only concentrate on one. You're on TV, you're on the bus or matatu, you listen to radio, so you find yourself consuming different kinds of media. Yeah, so this is I think statistics that is also making sense, and therefore it shows that even you as a marketer, if you have a good budget, you can still focus on marketing on all those platforms, because your audience is on all these platforms. Yeah.
Yeah, there was also that bit about that I found interesting on the radio listenership language. Of course, radio is the highest has among the highest listenerships, followed by TV. But
Yeah.
I was also interested in how their distribution is in terms of the type of content or languages that are being shared. And when you look at how how the authorities reporting, Swahili is still the largest share, has the largest share of consumption in terms of where what people are listening, and followed not so closely, almost half of it is vernacular. And I suspect again this listenership is distributed countrywide, so that we cannot say that
Yeah.
just because you are in Nairobi it means you only listen to English or Swahili. But it was
Yeah.
quite interesting to note that listenership in English English stations, you know, the ones that we know, you know, Spice FM, Kiss, Classic 105, all that are only contributing to an average of 10% listenership,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
quite
As
interesting.
yeah, you remember I told you, like, when I was not in Nairobi, when you used to grow up, you would
Mm.
find someone coming from Nairobi and they speak English, and you'll feel like this person is trying to show off. You know,
You
they are
feel
trying to
proud.
show off that they know a lot. So most people speak English um,
Informal
only when
settings.
it's necessary, especially out of Nairobi. But within
Mm.
Nairobi, you'll find people speaking because, of course, you want to relate with a certain class, or the environment forces you to do so. But people really speak Kiswahili. Actually, it's the broken Kiswahili, but it's Kiswahili and vernacular, especially out of Nairobi, or even in Nairobi. There are uh, certain areas in Nairobi, especially
Mm.
like the slums, and that's where many people are. They listen more to, or speak more, or listen more to Kiswahili and vernacular. So that statistics will also make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true because when you look at the listenership per demographic, the urban areas, the percentage of people who listen to in at least in the fourth quarter, the average number of people who listen to Swahili was around 59%. When you look at the rural area, it's still 59, but the percentage of people now listening to vernacular is 42%. So they're also almost toe to toe. And when you look at the English languages or English stations, 18% in urban, half of that, half a third of that in rural areas. So yeah, there might be some truth. Also, of course, if you look at it, like we said earlier, in terms of I had made the assumption that when you're in the low LSM, you listen to vernacular more than you would English. But when you look at how based on this report, whether you are in the low LSM or whether you are in the high LSM, the difference is very little, especially in terms of the type of language you consume the media at, because I would have assumed that the bougie and the high and the hoi pollois would be listening to a different type of audience compared to the rich people, because look at the trends. The guys in the high LSMs are also listening to quite a high percentage of vernacular. Same,
Yeah,
almost the same as the guys in the, of course, now in the low LSM, it's 50-50 in the last quarter. But the fact that the disparity is not as huge as one would have assumed, it also tells you that when you're doing your ads, if you're a person who has, for guys who are especially in the fast moving consumer goods business and in the financial sector, your ads, it tells you that you can actually advertise in any language and you'll still reach your audience. So nobody should tell you that when you go to a vernacular station, you're only going to reach the people who are in the maybe the rural area or the people who are in the lower LSM. So this is quite a telling data. So that if you know that maybe you have a station for a vernacular language, people who are speaking a specific language, and you're still trying to market even a luxury good like I would say a car is a luxury good in Kenya. You can still market it via that local language, and you would still get audiences who would be
yeah.
possible consumers of your platform. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also
Um.
the content that is shared, the content that they share on these vernacular radio stations and Kiswahili, they try to relate with what is happening on the ground. When you look at the
Mm,
English stations, are mostly in the urban areas, but now when you look at the radio stations, they go to the needs of the people in that locality. They share the music you listen to is almost related. You're supporting your people, information they are sharing, like for example, if it's a town or a city, a province, what a county that relates with farming, you'll get that most of their content is related to that, so people will listen to what is beneficial to them. Yeah.
yeah, and you're very right. I think you've just made me remember, when you listen to a station, most of the English speaking stations, they operate, the things they speak to. If you are a person in the rural area, you would really wonder what is happening in this country, because
Yeah.
most of the conversations they have are usually relationship, and not
Yeah.
even relationship issues. They are really just I don't know how to put it, but when you look at a local station, most of the time they'll talk about politics. They'll talk about
Mhm.
policies that are happening in the different areas. They'll talk about some things that are maybe the government projects that are being done, and it's quite interesting because you might find that a person who is in the urban area is less informed about what is happening in the government than a person who is in the rural area, just because of their decision to not be exposed to some of these things. Though that's why even
Yeah.
if you look at platforms, a person in IG and a person in Twitter, their exposure to political commentary is very different, and some of them might be ignorant to what is happening in the country until it is so trending that it moves to another platform. You find most of the time, most of the people, the platform also dictates how aware you are about different topics, whether it be business, whether it be politics, whether it be career. Like a person on LinkedIn, their exposure to opportunities in the corporate space is very different to a person in TikTok or on TikTok. So it's I find it interesting that it's also moving, not only now in the traditional media, but it's also moving in the platform. In fact, I look at platforms like how a traditional media is. Like I would look at how Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and whatnot. To me, they are like different mediums that serve different types of audiences.
Mm.
But now
Yeah.
you have the ability to access all of them at once by just clicking an app, which is quite interesting. Anyway, let's move
Yeah,
on
you
to
see,
the. Mm,
just to mention, you see, this is also beneficial to the content creators. Now that you know the the locality, the target also matters. You realize that when where the content creators who have been able to understand this, they have tried to create content that is local based. Like they have tried to create content either in vernacular, in Kiswahili, or they have tried to create content that relates with a certain region. And then when they do that, they are able to push or pull those people back to, or pull those people to listen to their content on the online platform. So that is also another way to drive people to the online space. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And what we are seeing even now is the media personalities are now becoming also influencers on the social platforms. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is quite interesting. Anyway, as we move on swiftly, there is this segment also about the impact or exposure of advertising on the internet use. And now, if you look at this first graph, um, anybody who is in marketing or who has done some campaigns on TV and radio, not radio actually, TV, knows that the slots that are premium or the slots that you need to bid for are usually between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. If you bid, in fact, what media houses now do is they do a bundle where they say, no, everybody is bidding for 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. because that's what we call prime time, and that's where everybody, you will get the most eyeballs. So what they do is they'll
Yeah.
say, we'll give you a slot maybe between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. But in addition, we shall charge you maybe a quarter of the fee to now run your ads all through the day. So they have also been trying to
Mm.
ensure that they maximize also their medium to also ensure that the advertiser still also is able to pay for the other slots. Because remember, even during the day, they are still paying for that content as a media house. If they are running a show, they have to pay for that content. If they are having an engagement, maybe they have to pay for that audience. So what they do is from my engagement with most media houses when I'm running the campaigns for different when I'm running different campaigns is they will rarely just tell you, let's just do an ad. Unless you're very adamant that I just want to run an ad between 6 to 10 p.m. Usually, these days, campaigns are no longer just, I want to run an ad today, and you are given a 6 to
Mm.
10 p.m. Usually, you run a campaign for a week because everybody has come to understand in marketing that one interaction is not enough to even create awareness about a brand, let alone lead to conversion. So you will get a suit of a bundle of solutions where they're saying we shall run a campaign for you for 1 week, and in this 1 week, 3 of the days we shall be running your ads all through the day, others we shall be running in the morning. And even those ones that have radio stations are telling you that we can even give you an additional spot or mention by one of our top presenters in the segment. So it's worth knowing that the slots might be 6 to 10 p.m. But the way the media has moved these days, you can get additional value by getting a bundle service that they can give you during the day. But on to the next one. I was interested in looking at these statistics for the people who are consuming the internet, and 60% of the respondents here in this report were actually um, consumers of internet media, and 60% based on the population is around 19 million people who are mentioned here as being consumers of internet media, and this is cutting across urban and rural areas. Now I did my own. This data has grouped people in very small bands. Now I did my own analysis of trying to see um, how they are bundled in terms of generations. Now there is the Gen Z, we have the Gen X, and we also have the millennials. Now, interestingly, the Gen Zs here based on my analysis and this data, because I could only work with the data I have, the guys between 15 to 24 um, years are actually the highest consumers of internet. They are averaging around 72% of uh, of internet use, which is quite high compared to millennials who are around 60%. And millennials are guys based on this report again, not the general understanding of millennials, guys between 25 and 44. So it was quite telling that indeed, if you are looking at the future, you ought to be in digital. Like you cannot even pretend to ignore that medium. And of course, if you're looking at remember, 60% does not mean that these guys are also not consuming other types of media or seven. But I know for 72% it's quite a high number, and I highly suspect that most of these consumers, they will take this behavior even going forward. And the consumption of media, this is now the the generic type of media, the TV, newspaper, and radio, will continue to decline as the generations continue to exit the stage. And of course, the least consumptions of consumers of the internet in this, at least based on the last quarter, was the Gen X. And if you look at their average, it was around 33%. So most of these guys, of course, are approaching their sunset years. Technology, some of them use it because it's a necessity or a requirement, but they would prefer the listening to the radio to get their information, or getting it uh, on TV, or even now these days, because these are parents of the millennials and the Gen Zs. They are getting their information via WhatsApp. So also again, digital media is a big media. In fact, we cannot overemphasize how big you need to worry about your brand that is not on the digital space. And again, just a shameless plug, we do offer digital solutions for companies that want to grow their brands online at www.ashagroup.com, or you can even just contact us, ask us to respond to you via the comment section, and we shall help you with your digital marketing and digital growth strategy. Anyway, apart from that plug, Vicky, I know you're very passionate about social media platforms, so I'll let you handle this segment.
Yeah, this was a very interesting statistics. I was looking at first of all, Facebook and WhatsApp. I think for me, I think the integration of Facebook with WhatsApp was a plus to Meta because it allowed one to be able to get people from Facebook to WhatsApp. Therefore, you're able to get their contact and also improve your communication with them and eventually make more sales. So this even helped advertisers because when you look at our way of communication in this country, people relate more with WhatsApp than even text and email. So this was a way to really bring in the audience on the social media platforms and also just having. That's why we have more users on Facebook and WhatsApp. I was looking at also LinkedIn, and I didn't know that I'll get that kind of low data because I'm looking at Snapchat. I've never even used Snapchat, but it's still higher than
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Yeah, so even Telegram, I know there are people who are using it for business. So yeah, maybe the number is still there. There was a time it was very high, but I think right now most people are using WhatsApp and Facebook. Also looking at the difference between YouTube and TikTok, um, it's like they're dancing along.
Neck and neck.
Yeah, they are neck and neck. But because of again, their way of displaying their content is majorly through videos. It's just that TikTok is short form, YouTube is long form and short form. But I think they're just dancing along, and eventually, with time, people will relate more with one of them. Probably, we have the audience that likes content that is short. And then we have audience that wants educational content to gain more knowledge. So I think that is a balance which is very good. And it is also interesting that Twitter is ahead of Google. I would expect Google to be ahead because now we are talking about the Google platform as a whole, the search engines, the Google Maps. I thought that would work better than Twitter, but I don't know. Maybe because of the interactions that we have had lately, we had the protests going on. We had so much conversations that have been going on. Maybe that led to um, Twitter leading, but Google has a lower than expected percentage. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, what was interesting was that indeed, and I tried to, I think I mentioned this with you offline that in my view is the growth in X or Twitter and TikTok in this Q4. Remember Q4 for government here, it's between May, it's between April and June. So my view is because of what was happening locally, politically, in terms of the movement, the Gen Z movement of rejecting the finance bill. A lot of engagement or a lot of interaction was happening on TikTok, and I suspect that is why it grew from 23% in the first quarter to 28, while now YouTube, because again, people want to consume a lot of information, but remember we are very restricted as a country in terms of the cost of data, and people want to consume it in the manner that is in the manner that is easily consumable to them. The beauty about TikTok is you can get it in your language, the content, you can get it in the shortest way possible, and you get it in a fun and less YouTube, for some reason the content has to be well packaged for an audience. It's like you're targeting a specific audience. TikTok, you can speak to your fellow fellow mama mbogas, you can speak to your fellow corporate people. Like TikTok is for everyone, and I think that is something that YouTube has really struggled to be a platform for everyone. YouTube is like the Instagram version, is like the video version of Instagram, and that's why I found it quite interesting that you would have assumed when TikTok came that it was going to cannibalize Instagram and any other platform. But clearly from this data, TikTok is competing seriously or heavily with YouTube, which means that every time YouTube consumption goes up, TikTok consumption goes down. And it's the other way around. And I suspect because, like you were saying earlier, the way this content is displayed or shared is usually in the same manner, and that's why you would see also for people who are keen, YouTube had to react with shorts because they realized that best, I guess they have a big, even a bigger pool of data than we have here in Kenya. They understood that a lot of traffic was moving towards that type of content. But I love YouTube that they did not go against what now consumers loved, which is long form content, in favor of short form content. They try to have a blend of both worlds, which is quite good. For a consumer, I think they have also been able to maintain, while they are losing some form of market share, they still balance and maintain some form of relevance, especially for people who are wanting to get more information about a specific topic, learning, or get even news and whatnot. So it's a quite interesting statistic for LinkedIn. I have my personal opinions about LinkedIn, but I will not share them here lest lest I'm
Yeah.
found to be biased.
I
But
think
there's
I'm
also this.
also thinking,
Mm,
I think also the telecommunications company, for some reason, they have supported a few of these platforms like WhatsApp. Like if you have low data bundles, you will still be able to access WhatsApp as opposed to email. I think also that is one of the things that would have attributed to this. Yeah.
yeah, they support them not because of they like them. They support them because of usage. Because based on they see the traffic, they see it does not make sense for us to discount an email platform when 80% of our users use WhatsApp. So for them, it's a business decision where they are saying if we discount this, we can increase its usage and of course grow our revenues. But then if we discount LinkedIn, uh, the people who are using LinkedIn probably don't need discounting of that of the internet.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, still on LinkedIn, I said I won't share, but it's also a reflection of the country because LinkedIn is a primarily corporate platform, and based on the
Mhm.
Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we have 2 million formal employed people. Out of that, almost a third of them, two-thirds of them are employed in this low skilled and informal sector. So when you are not informal sector, low skilled jobs, when you have almost around 5% of your population earning around 100,000 shillings and above, then it tells you that indeed that a platform that is catering to that audience will be low. In fact, even if you look at subscriptions on LinkedIn, you can remind me, but I think it costs you almost 3,000 shillings, more than 3,000 shillings to be on LinkedIn Premium, which is way more than what it would cost you to be on any other subscription. Vicky?
Yes, yes, true. I think LinkedIn as well. Yeah, it's a bit expensive. I think they are focusing for the on the corporates. Yeah, you are very right. The percentage of corporates are and individuals who are in the corporates are very few.
Mm.
I think also the email people interacting with email are mostly in the urban areas. The local area people, they mostly relate on WhatsApp and text. Some even actually some just text because they don't even have an Android phone or a good phone
Yeah.
to use email. Yeah.
In fact, thank you for mentioning email because you've reminded me. There was a time we were talking, discussing about why email marketing is very hard to do in Kenya. Clearly, you can see based on the statistics that it's a very niche type of campaign. So even when we are advising customers who are like, okay, what about email marketing? It's a nice to have, but it's not a necessity. At least if you're catering to the mass market, email marketing
Yes.
is clearly a very niche, and when I say very in caps, very niche audience, and even the
Yes.
people who are accessing email are not very fond of opening advertising mails.
Yeah, it depends with the your audience. If your
Uh,
audience is corporates, then email is that's why email and LinkedIn are almost the same because it depends with your audience. If your audience are the normal a normal Kenyan, then WhatsApp will work better than email. Yeah.
yeah, sure. Okay. As we come to a close, there was this data that we could just not ignore, and this was about the advertising expenditure probably maybe for you who is listening, this is the data you've been waiting to interact with and listen to our reactions on it. Now, brands spent a whooping 18 billion shillings advertising between April and June. This is just one quarter of this year, and it was higher than October to December, which was around 17 billion. One would have assumed that the holiday period would be when they spend most. But when you look at the way these companies are spending, even the beverages companies, you would imagine that they would spend um, heavily in the Christmas season. But when you look at companies in the beverage, they actually spent three times more than three times what they spent in the period of December. So it was quite interesting that now even us learning that indeed if you are in the business of advertising, the highest time, because these companies are spending based on data, so you can also extrapolate this to understand that if you are a company running a campaign, the time that you're likely to get the highest conversions is between the last quarter, the second and the last quarter. And when they say the second and the last quarter, I mean between April to June, that is the last quarter for government, and then between February February, March, yeah, February and March, because of course January is a dry season for most companies. So if you are running a campaign, February to June would be a good period to invest heavily on marketing. And I say this because most companies usually measure their campaigns. By the time they are half year, they can tell whether they are going to hit their targets in the second half. So they usually spend a lot of money to get. And even you as a business, you need to focus on getting the most value in your first half of the year. Anyway, something also interesting that I found was that when you look at these statistics, the biggest spenders are guys in the financial services. Now, financial services here includes the guys who are offering loan app services, the guys who are offering those logbook loans, the guys who are the actual commercial banks, insurance companies, SACCOs, and whatnot. Anybody who is in that space would be considered a financial services. Then also betting, we have always assumed betting is a top spender, and indeed based on the statistics, they contribute around they are on the top five, spending about 1 billion in the last quarter, which is quite something for an industry that is not as big as you would assume in the financial sector, like the financial services. Then our favorite companies in the communication industry, which is Airtel and Safaricom, are spending 1.7 billion, which is, looking at the compared to what the financial services are spending, 60% of what these guys were spending in that period. So it is quite telling how big the two companies are heavily spending. And let's be honest, the biggest spender here is likely Safaricom. So if you are a company or an influencer, a top influencer, you understand why most of them are either working with tech big, what are they called, betting companies, or with these communications companies, because their spending is also reflecting on how they compensate their creatives and all other places. Anyway, other notable spenders that I found were guys in the beverages industry. If you look at their spending in this segment, beverages here is EABL and whatnot. They're spending quite a huge number, almost 1.3 billion in the last quarter alone for beverages companies. Then there's also real estate, watu wa mashamba. They are spending quite a huge amount. They're spending. I'm trying to look at it here in this actual statistics. Their spending is also quite high, and I think that their spending was better explained down here. Real estate. Why am I not seeing the real estate? Yeah. Anyway, property and building. Then there is also quite a high expenditure. But yeah, those are just some of the insights that I thought were useful to anybody who is in the marketing space. I don't know if Vicky, you have thoughts on the distribution.
Okay. Yeah. So when I look at these statistics, I think it also
Mm,
depends with the nature of the business, because when you look at the financial services, these are large businesses compared to, like, when you go down to the clothing and fabric and footwear. Most of them are small businesses, or even businesses that have very few people, and of course their budget is also low. When you look at also the profit margins, you'll realize that the service businesses tend to make more profit margins than the product businesses. So when you look at the pharmaceuticals, office equipment, clothing, their budget might be a bit lower because of the money even that they are making, the profits that they are making to be able to take it back to marketing. But the financial services, the media, they are probably making a good uh, betting and gaming. They're probably making a good profit margin to be able to do that. So I think also that is data that is to be considered.
Yeah, I don't think it's more about the profit margin, but maybe just the share of profit. But on the thing about clothing and pharmaceuticals and these small areas, the retail, my view
Mm,
is the size of the industry is also as a result of the conservative spend. Surely anybody in the retail industry or in the pharmaceuticals industry could be spending close to 1 billion shillings if they wanted to increase their market share. But I suspect that the players in that industry are also very conservative in their spend. So I think
okay.
if even in the financial services, they if even if they wanted also to spend 1 billion, they could, but they also understand that the more you spend, the more you make. So I'm of the view that it is, of course, limited by their size of their share, their size and their profitability. But I suspect that it's also because for many years they have never heavily invested in doing advertising. And even now, as we are moving to the digital, unfortunately, the big spenders, these are the financial services, the betting companies, communication, beverages, are still they are still the guys who are adapting to the digital trends. And these pharmaceuticals
Yeah.
and guys in the logistics and retail are also very struggling. In fact, if you anybody who has run a digital marketing agency knows that it is the hardest thing to convince a person in retail to put money in digital. When you go to a meeting with a person in the real estate sector, they're asking you how much should we spend in such a campaign. So it's also, in my view, also they are how we need to get them as people in the marketing space. And if you are a marketer in this industry, please share with us some of your frustrations when you're trying to market, because I know every marketer always hopes for that opportunity to deploy resources in an effective and in a grand manner that any other industry would. Anyway, that has been it for us and for anybody who has been watching. Thank you for being with us and engaging with us up to this period. Today we unpacked a very important topic, and it took time because it's an industry report that anybody who is in this space needs to fully understand and explore some of these trends. We looked at how maybe different medias are consuming, people are consuming media, and yeah, we also looked at the frequency, how people are consuming media, different frequencies. We found that people are consuming more than one media. We found that radio is big. We found that in Nairobi it's evenly distributed, and a lot of other things. Anyway, we hope that you found this episode insightful, and if you did, please like, share with your network, subscribe, and don't remember to leave a comment. We always like those comments are the ones that help us grow. And again, like if you have any other reactions on areas that you could improve or any clarification you need on this report and any other thing that we've done, please feel free to share with us in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. For it From us, it's been delightful, and see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.